Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland. So this is a video about Boris and Brexit as requested by one of my loyal supporters in the financial sense. Um, Boris Johnson's Prime Minister of the United Kingdom took over in July last year, 2019. So how has opinion shifted on Boris and Brexit? That's the thing to ask, because Bojo, he threw his decisive and very considerable weight behind Brexit in the June 2016 referendum, and he only announced his position a couple of months earlier. Because he was a journalist for the Daily Telegraph, the UK's main quality Eurosceptic newspaper. He was there in Brussels in the 90s as a Brussels correspondent. He'd even been at school in Brussels when he was little in the 70s. So with Bojo, it's all about calculation for self-advancement. He'd finally got to the top of the greasy pole. He was first Lord of the Treasury. He'd hankered off this after this office all his life. His sister, Rachel, who's a journalist, unhelpfully vouchsafed that as a toddler he'd fantasized about being world king. I don't think he was principled in going for Brexit, but he had such a personal following that would have been enough to tip it decisively towards Leave, bearing in mind that the Leave camp won by only 2 percentage points. Then he became Prime Minister. He vowed to get Brexit done by October 2019. It was a pledge that he knew he couldn't fulfill. As LBJ said, the first thing in politics is you need to be able to count. And the parliamentary arithmetic just wasn't there. So he sought that early election in November 2019. Under the Fixed Terms Parliaments Act of 2011, the Prime Minister can't simply request the Queen dissolve Parliament. 2/3 of the House of Commons has to vote for an early dissolution, and they did it. So anyway, he got his election. He got a decisive victory, an 80-seat majority. Get Brexit done. That was the constant refrain of the Conservative campaign, and that mantra played well, which is why they won those red wall seats in Northern England, these constituencies which have been in Labour hands for decades. Anyway, 31st of January 2020, the United Kingdom left the European Union at midnight that night. Now, there was a trade deal worked out, an interim trade deal, which is due to expire on New Year's Eve this year, 2020. What's going to pertain after that, we don't know. This is a bit of a moonlight steeplechase. So the special arrangements in Northern Ireland, because it's the only section of the United Kingdom to have a land border with the European Union, because of the Republic of Ireland. We border Northern Ireland, and the Irish Republic, we're an EU member state, and Europhilia is really rampant in the Irish Republic. About 85% of people are Europhile, where I come from. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of trade, and the EU might insist on sort of customs inspections on goods coming from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, or indeed the UK, say any goods coming from Northern Ireland to the UK have to inspect them. So the EU border would be effectively down the middle of the Irish Sea, even though Northern Ireland is part and parcel of the United Kingdom. There's another factor, of course, because the majority of people in Northern Ireland voted to stay within the European Union. They voted to remain. So Bojo doesn't want that precedent to be set, because then the Scots will say, well, how about us in Caledonia? 62% of us voted Remain. That's an even higher percentage than Northern Ireland. We've got to have some dispensation. And Bojo is going to say no, because that's on the way to splitting up the United Kingdom. And the Conservative Party, to give it its full name, is a Conservative and Unionist Party. He wants to keep it together. So he's got that headache to resolve. So he's trying to pass the Internal Market Bill, which would say that there'll be no customs inspections between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. A lot of people are saying that that's breaking international law. Now, I'm not sure, but I will go with the expert consensus. They know far more than I do, so I'm going to have to defer to their superior knowledge. It's not a field of expertise of mine. I don't really have any expertise. So I think it's a bad thing to break international law. I know many sovereign states do and get away with it. It's a bad precedent. The EU would hit back. Joe Biden looks like he's going to become president. He's another factor, because he's very much in line with the Irish lobby in Washington, D.C., and they will say, we won't have a trade deal with the United Kingdom if you do this in relation to Northern Ireland. There's got to be a soft border, so goods and services and people can get back and forth from Northern Ireland to the Irish Republic easily, without let or hindrance. No inspections. Does this conform to our regulations? Though I was told by some Brexit protesters last year that these inspections happen from time to time anyway. I don't know. And yes, I know there was a hard border in the Troubles, but that's because there was a lot of political violence. And so the army and the Royal Ulster Constabulary, that's the police, they were stopping people. Are you a wanted person on the run? We're going to arrest you, suspected of killing whoever. Are you smuggling weapons or guns or whatever? Because it was because of that, really. And partly the European Union wasn't so united. The European Union wasn't founded at all until 93. It was the European Economic Community. At any border, you might stop and search people for drugs or whatever. Um, but now that virtually never happens. A lot of people live in one jurisdiction, work in the other, study in one, live in the other, and so forth. So he's got problems on his hands. He's just been denounced the other day by the erstwhile Prime Minister Theresa May. So his personal standing has fallen considerably. Labour is ahead of him at the polls. So he won his election. There was the honeymoon. Usually when a party wins, the Prime Minister's personal rating, party's rating shoots up because people like that, jump on the bandwagon. Then there's the honeymoon, which is a plateau for a few months, and then it dips. So those are really the three phases of a government's popularity in UK politics: the honeymoon, the decline, and then the recovery shortly before the next election. So the question is, how long is that honeymoon? How long is that decline? And how steep is the decline? And the recovery, when does it start? Does it start here going up? Does it start here, or what? And is it a small recovery, or is it a high recovery? Is it sufficient for them to win the next election? So we're very much in the decline stage of the government's popularity, which is quite early. Because he finally achieved his dream of becoming prime minister, but within 3 months, it had all gone sour when coronavirus came along, and he mishandled that one. There was maladministration of everything. They didn't take the warning signals seriously. They didn't prepare. There weren't sufficient ventilators or anything. He dithered about the lockdown. He was shaking hands with his advice not to, setting a very poor example. He got coronavirus because of his own rashness, and he was poo-pooing talk of risk. So he's tried to lose weight because his tubbiness rendered him more susceptible to it. So his personal standing has fallen considerably. He's known as a joker. Well, japes just won't cut it. This is no laughing matter. Because he's normally seen as richly comic. What a character. Even people who spit blood at the very name Tory often find Bojo a barrel of laughs. But quite frankly, there's an awful lot to be serious about right now. We might want a more saturnine Prime Minister, one who's not got such a cavalier attitude. So there are not many ructions in his ranks. But Labour's got this formidable new leader, Sir Keir Starmer, someone I respect very greatly. And I was speaking to a political expert, a friend of mine, a lecturer, university lecturer, and he said he thinks that Starmer has played a blinder. And this chum of mine, he's actually very conservative, but just objectively speaking, he recognises that Sir Keir Starmer is a very serious operator, and if he's as good as he looks, then the Conservative Party's got a real headache. Anyway, back to the European Union, sorry. The UK has still got a very cordial relationship with the European Union. It's shadowing it. For example, sanctions on Belarus, they're consulting on this. They're largely doing the same thing. So they don't want to fall out with their partners, partly because a long-term trade deal has yet to be thrashed out, and they don't want to queer the pitch for that one. And, it's in everybody's interest that they should have a good working relationship. But what's going to happen about the common fisheries policy, how far out on British territorial waters? When the United Kingdom joined the EEC in 1973, that meant that British territorial waters were open to fishermen from all over the EEC. And then fish stocks was decimated, were very, very low since. But, under 1% of the UK population works in fisheries. So the idea was, who cares? It's a price worth paying. But obviously it was terrible for some fishing communities. Anyway, so Sir Keir Starmer is not falling into the trap of talking about overturning Brexit, because there seems to be little appetite to do so. See how it goes. If it's cataclysmic, perhaps people would think again in 5 years. But at the moment, people are bored to tears of the issue. I'm a political obsessive, and I just never want to hear the word again. The Liberal Democrats, the most ardently Euro-fanatical party, these are Euromaniacs. Even they are not talking about reversing Brexit. But again, I think it'll be a wait-and-see attitude from them. The Scottish National Party, well, their objective is to sunder the United Kingdom, to take North Britain out of the United Kingdom and to rejoin the European Union, the oxymoronic policy of independence in Europe. So I've not seen a poll on what people think about Brexit right now. Obviously, there's some who'll always be against, but people have got other issues in front of them. more concerned about coronavirus. This has really knocked Brexit off the front page. As I say, people are fed up to the back teeth of hearing about it. There are other issues to deal with. The economy has contracted by 20% since coronavirus. Now, every country has seen an economic contraction, but the UK's economic shrinkage is one of the worst in the world. To what extent this is attributable to Brexit and to what extent to coronavirus, I don't know. But obviously, it would suit the government to say, oh, it's not our fault, it's all because of coronavirus. But some anti Brexiteers would know, so it's principally owing to Brexit. We shall see. So there's a bit of a fait accompli because Brexit has happened, and it'd be difficult to change it back, especially without a referendum. And people might be furious about having to vote again. And that's one of the reasons Labour and the Lib Dems did so badly last time, is people said, we voted for Brexit and we meant it. And you dithered and you tried every trick in the book to thwart the settled will of the people. So that's why Labour and the Lib Dems lost so decisively. Labour had this sort of self-contradictory policy, so convoluted they were going to negotiate a new deal with the EU, then call a second referendum, and Labour would campaign against the deal that they had just negotiated, which would be hugely strengthen the EU's hand to offer the United Kingdom an absolutely atrocious deal, because they knew that then Labour would campaign against that. And so they're thinking that this deal is so bad that all but the most crazy Brexiteers got to vote no. Anyway, so these are some of my thoughts. Boris Johnson's his personal standing has been hit. He's been Prime Minister for not very long, but things have gone very badly. I know some of it wasn't his fault, he didn't create coronavirus, but it was not handled cleverly. Could the Conservatives still win the next election? Yes, they could, but it's less likely than it might first appear. Conservatives just won 4 elections in a row. What goes up must come down. Can't defy political gravity forever. But as I pointed out, Labour have got a mountain to climb. Got to win about 180 seats to win next time. That's unprecedented, but there's always a first time. Anything else about Bojo? Well, there's this rumour abroad that he's going to stand down next time. He's lost weight, partly because he realised he needed to shed the pounds, fighting off those flabby folds on his bicycle and so on, because that rendered him susceptible to coronavirus. He's 55. He's got this new fiancée. He's a baby, his 6th child, and coronavirus can have lifelong deleterious effects on one's health. So he needs to be more salubrious, and this is just such a stressful job. The sky is full of chickens coming home to roost. Why not jack it in and do something less stressful and more remunerative? That's what Cameron did when things went awry for him. I don't know that it's true. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Okay, so those are a few of my thoughts on this. So please keep donations coming. Much better if you donate to PayPal, please, because I can access it very easily. Patreon, I can't remember how to access it on Patreon. So on PayPal, I'm georgecallahan79@gmail.com. It's all small letters. Callahan spelled CALLAGHAN. Thank you, everyone. Toodle pip.